Hi everyone. Well, I'm on Barracks Road at Highfields. So this is the back end of the development that starts over at Reese Road. And I just want to give you an update of what's going on here. Um, all of these big, beautiful trees. And by the way, I'm in my car because it's quite windy outside and I just, the noise will be too much with the wind. But I've just got out and walked up and down the road here and had a look from the side of the road looking in. And all of these big, beautiful trees are going to come down. And that's a mixture of a choice that the developer's making and also some really stupid rules from the council. Apparently, the council says Highfield is over supplied with parks, so they won't let the developers keep this as a park, or some of these stands of trees here as a park. That just beggars belief. But then also the developer can choose to not develop this. They don't have to demolish all of this. There's plenty of other options that they've got. They don't have to do it the way that they're doing it. And I'd like to point out that what the developers are doing here is not illegal. Okay, I'm not suggesting they're doing anything illegal. And if you have a look at some of this footage here, you can see that they've started to cut hollows out of the trees. So these are hollows that they've checked and have determined to be empty. And I don't really know what's going on there. They're possibly being relocated to other sites. But look, the developers aren't doing anything illegal, but this still shows you how our laws and our developer practices just aren't up to the standard that they should be. It's not just about tree hollows. It's also about the food services that these trees provide for animals. You've got birds that are going to be eating insects above the level of the canopy, like dollar birds like pardalotes and fantails that'll be eating insects in amongst the canopy. You've got pouncing hunting birds like robins and kookaburras, butcher birds, other birds that glean insects off the bark and the trunks and the running up and down the branches like tree creepers. Then you've got all of the birds that are going to that are now living in the undergrowth and are going to lose all of that. Fairy wrens, this is a great spot for fairy wrens here. Brown quail, painted button quail. And this is just the birds. It's not just about the hollows. So, okay, I acknowledge the developers are probably moving the hollows or something. I'm not quite sure what they're doing there, but it's like, and obviously hollows are very important for cavity nesting birds like parrots, cockatoos, kingfishers, owl at night jars, wood ducks. But it just doesn't replace what you've lost. You think of all of the other birds I was listing and how they gain their food, where they're living, how they're exploiting this environment, and that's just birds. And so trying to save something or creating an offset or thinking you can mitigate this, it's just not a like for like replacement. What's going to happen here is a huge loss of animals, biodiversity, ecosystems, and there's a better way than this, and it requires, if developers aren't going to voluntarily choose to do that, I certainly call on the developer here to stop doing this. You can stop it now. You don't have to develop this land this way. You've got other options that you can choose to do. Okay, it may cost you more, but I understand that, that you can manage that. You don't have to do it this way. We don't have to go for the lowest common denominator that the law, allows you to get away with at the moment. And the council needs to change some of their rules. And look, the bigger picture here is we're in the middle of the new planning scheme is being developed by the Toowoomba Regional Council. It's coming out next year. There's going to be a lot of feedback. Huge things need to change in that. We need to have the ability to nominate and protect trees. We need to have good mapping. We need to have good criteria under which trees are protected. Look, I'll give you an example of how stupid the mapping is at the moment. I know it's been updated by the council, but that won't come into effect to the new planning scheme. Let's just have a look at the road here. Okay, now here's Barracks Road. The koala mapping stops on this road here. Okay, so this is koala habitat. Somehow the koalas magically know to stop at the boundary here and not go over here. It is completely ridiculous. this is another thing which allows the developers to get away with this. Like I said, they're not doing anything illegal, but it is just doesn't pass muster. It's just not good enough. You know, just because the laws are lax doesn't mean that you should get away with everything that you can. So anyway, say goodbye to all of this, unless if the developers choose to save it, and if the council, you know, it's a long process in getting the planning scheme updated, but you know, for goodness sake, to say you're not allowed to create a park here because there's too many parks in Highfields, I mean, get your hand off it. If people want to make a park here, let them. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that's about all I can say at the moment. This is an example of what's changing in our environment, in our local area, changing the nature of this place forever, because we're just too slow in catching up to where we should be in terms of the laws and the developer practices. So this is an update. All of this stuff at the moment is slated to be down in the next week or two, and this is what it's going to turn into. And the amazing thing about this footage is you can see all of these new houses getting built, and those trees you can see in the background, they've got houses amongst them. It's not raw bush. When that was developed there, a huge amount of those trees were kept and developed around, just like what should be happening here. I'm not saying that humans shouldn't have homes. Of course we should. All I'm saying is that we shouldn't destroy one to get the other. We can have both.